Lions University course this evening, the webinar for the master's program, the very first course we're offering on the master's program, Creative and Effective District Meetings. Our presenter this evening is past Council Chair Mark Miller, who also happens to be the General Chairperson for the 2015 Grand Forum in Grand Rapids, Michigan this September. So welcome everyone. Just a quick synopsis of what we've accomplished so far. The bachelor's program got up and running this past fall, and we've had a very wonderful response, a tremendous response from Lions around North America joining in on the bachelor programs. And as you can see on the slide here, we have a list of the 10 required courses and the 5 elective courses, or all of the elective courses that are going to be offered. And the person that, if you take, you will be required to take all 10 required courses and at least 5 of the electives in order to receive a certificate of completion for the bachelor's program, in addition to attending a USA-Canada forum. Now, the bachelor's program, as I said, is continuing. Not all of these courses have been offered as of yet. They will be intermixed with the master's program courses in the coming months, alternating each week, one bachelor program and one master's program. This evening is our first master's program course, and I don't know if there's a slide. There we go. We have a slide here for the master's program showing the 10 required courses, the 200 level courses, and all of the elective courses that we have so far, of which 5 would be required to be taken in order to qualify for the master's certificate. In addition to these courses and passing the bachelor's program, you will also have to attend a second USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum and also attend an institute, whether it be a leadership institute offered by LCI or a district governor-elect school at the International Convention for the incoming governors. So there's an additional requirement of that institute. And that institute could have been, you could have attended that institute prior to taking the master's program. We will give you credit for that. So there are, and then coming up, most likely in the fall, we'll be kicking off at the forum in Grand Rapids will be the doctoral program. Now the master's program is basically geared towards the district level. We're looking at courses to cover the district focused, basically for the vice district governors, district governor leadership roles, anyone in those roles or aspiring to become a vice district governor and a district governor. These courses are aimed to help you in those endeavors. So with that, we'll hopefully maybe move on to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to your presenter again. Well, first I guess this slide looks at the Lions University website, and if you go on lionsuniversity.org onto our website, you'll come up with this page, and this basically explains the course 104 Effective Club Meetings, and it gives you a description of it, the presenter, and any course materials that will be offered for this course, including handouts and such. Handouts will be available usually a couple of days before the course is offered online. And then, of course, following the course, you are required, if you want to get the certificate of completion for the entire program, you're required to pass a test on each of the courses, and you can take that test immediately after the webinar or any time thereafter. You can go in. In order to take the test, you need to We want to make sure that we have everyone recorded. And so you go on the members.lionsforum.org page, and you can go ahead and get your membership, activate your membership on the Lions University as a Lions University student, because it's free. As a member of the USA Canada Forum, attending a USA Canada Forum. And in doing this, you go in and you activate your membership, and then we are able then to record your test completion, all your courses that you've taken, and keep an active update on your course activity throughout the year. There's no time limit as far as when these courses need to be completed. The programs need to be completed, but we do require that the bachelor's program is completed before you can complete and be certified for the master's program. So with that, I do encourage you to go on to the Lions University website and review it, look through there. We also have the sessions will be recorded. This one is being recorded. And if someone is unable to attend the webinar live, for whatever reason, they can go into the archives and pull up that particular course and pull up the recorded session and listen to the entire session, and then take the test following that time, and hopefully pass the test too as well. So there's all kinds of different ways to attend these courses and virtually take the test following the coursework. So Mark, are you ready to go?
I sure am, and thank you very much, PID Bud, for getting us started with all the logistics. The first thing I'd like for us to do tonight as we start our session on effective and creative district meetings is I have a question for you, a poll. And it's a fairly simple question. I want you to rate the effectiveness of your district's most recent meeting. I don't know what, and with the 30 or so of us that are online tonight, there's no telling what type of district meeting you may have just been to. But take that into consideration and answer the poll in front of you by rating how effective you thought that particular meeting was. And so take just a few seconds here as we get started on effective district meetings and creative district meetings to rate what you thought about your last district meeting. And I see that 65% of y'all have voted. And we'll give just a few more seconds for our folks to register their opinion of what they thought about the effectiveness of their last district meeting. Just a few more seconds, and I'm going to close the poll because we have just about everybody has answered, and I'm going to share with you those results now. Let me get it so I can see also. You should see the results in front of you right now. And in that, you will see that 26% of you thought that you had an excellent district meeting. 56% thought it was good, meaning it was generally an effective meeting. But some of you found that your district meeting was weak or bad and could use some improvement. And so thank you very much for sharing those results with me, because it's important to note tonight that we are talking about the effectiveness of district meetings. But I first want to know what we're talking about by district meetings. And so I would like to ask that in the form of a question. What are we talking about? What kind of meetings take place in a district? If you have an answer to that question, I'd like for you to type in the questions pane an answer to what type of meetings or the name of different district meetings that you have there. I see, and I'm going to share those verbally with you as well as otherwise. AJ was the first one to come up with a zone meeting. Michael came up with a cabinet meeting. Dawn says region or a district governor advisory committee meeting. Several of you saying cabinet meetings, regional meetings, zone meetings. Joyce also says region meetings. Several more zone cabinets. Good, good. Still redistricting meeting. Betty Ann says that's a meeting, an advisory committee meeting. Good, good. I see that we've got quite a list of different types of meetings that do take place in a district. So if you don't mind, let me share with you kind of my list of the different types of district meetings as it went scooting by. Excuse me. Should have done this in advance. I apologize to y'all. Right quick. So, cabinet meetings. Almost all of you talked about cabinet meetings. None of you mentioned a district convention as a meeting. I do see that AJ came up with a winter retreat. Many districts across North America have what they call midwinter meetings of one type. A lot of districts have officer training schools or events or even institutions that they host. Oftentimes, there are those different types of training events. And definitely, zone meetings or region meetings fall into the description of what we would call a district meeting. And so, your particular district may have some other types of meetings. You may call them different things depending on your tradition. And so tonight, as we're talking about effective and creative meetings, we're going to be focusing on this particular type of meeting. And so when a district meets, you will often find that there are two different types of things going on at district meetings. You often have business meetings. Can anybody think of what happens at a district business meeting? If you've got a suggestion, raise your hand and I will call on you to share with, if you've got a microphone, or you can type it in as to the question about, and Dawn's already answered by the question. She says voting on the budget. That's a good example, Dawn. Anyone else? You can either raise your hand and I'll call on you verbally. AJ, you're unmuted. How about another type of business meeting that occurs at a district? You there, AJ?
Yeah, what I was going to mention was coming up with district service projects.
Okay, so the district cabinet might be conducting a meeting to identify and agree on a project. Okay, good example. Thank you, AJ. Someone else have an example? Mike has suggested elections. Several of you voting for district governor officers, chair reports. Frank says that. And so, yes, y'all are right on track with what I was anticipating, in that we have business meetings that occur at a district, meaning the annual election of your district officers. Your budget setting was one, and reports. Now, oftentimes you have cabinet meetings, and at those cabinet meetings, you have a lot of reports shared from district committee chairs and others. All of that fits under a business meeting. And a lot of what we're going to cover tonight is not going to talk about the governance side of elections and budgeting and things of that nature. That is covered actually on February 10th in a webinar we're conducting called District Governance, which we will spend an enormous amount of time talking about election procedures and how a district operates and sets up a budget and who's on the cabinet and what roles they play. All of that will be discussed in detail, as well as some advice on running and administering those things in that separate webinar on February the 10th. Tonight, we're largely going to focus on the other thing that hopefully happens at district meetings, and that is the development meetings or the development side of a district gathering. And that might be in situations where your district is conducting training, where the district's meeting provides inspiration to its members and educational opportunities. And so those are prime examples, and this is very different from the business meeting, which is all elections and budgets and reports. Instead, training, inspiration, education, and sharing and fellowship are all geared toward who? Somebody have an answer to who this developmental meetings are all focused on? If you do, raise your hand and I'll unmute you to call on you. Let's see, John, I see your hand is raised. Do you have an idea of who these development meetings are focused on? You there, John? Okay, we're gonna, who might these meetings be focused on? And a couple of people have said some very key items. Lillian says Lions. Jim says club members. Ajet says future leaders and officers. General Lions body, the club. Absolutely. These developmental meetings of a district play the vital function of what a district is all about. So next question I have is a poll for you to take. And it's at your most recent meeting of your district, what percentage of the clubs in your district were present? So take a second and answer that poll that's in front of you now about the percentage of clubs that had delegates actually present at your last district meeting. Take just a few more seconds. Most of you have voted. There are a couple more that may want to vote. Then we're going to share the results of this poll. Okay, we're going to close the poll, and I'm going to share those results with you. In front of you should be the poll results. And in it, it is showing that a large percentage of you, 23%, said that less than 40% of the clubs had delegates at your most recent meeting. Then most of you were in the 80 to 40% range, but only 4% of you claimed to have 100 to 90% of the clubs having delegates at that particular meeting. I'm embarrassed to share a statistic with you, but I think that it is very important. Each year, one of the requirements that a multiple district has is to send in a report concerning its annual convention. In North America, no multiple district reported having more than 44% of their clubs represented at a multiple district meeting, at their multiple district convention. Meaning every multiple district in our area, Constitutional Area 1 and Area 2, had less than 50% of the clubs represented at their multiple district meeting. So the question becomes, is why aren't clubs coming to meetings? And even with your statistics that you just shared with us a few seconds ago, it would appear that there are significant reasons why clubs are not attending district meetings. So I want you to take your district leader hat off for a second and put back your club leadership hat on and think for a second of why those club representatives are not coming to your district meeting. And so here is a poll, which I'm going to launch. And I'm going to ask you to choose why you think the club leaders are electing not to attend district meetings. Take just a second to answer that. %82 of you've answered now. A few more. And by the way, you can choose more than one on this one. Okay, I'm going to close that poll and share those results with you. As you can see from the results that are in front of you, a large percentage, and by the way, the statistics and member surveying that is done by Oak Brook agrees with you. The actually doesn't completely agree with you. 41% of you says there is nothing at the meeting for me. And that is the number one reason, overwhelmingly. Most that polls that have been done by the membership division at Oak Brook have determined that 80% of the people not attending district and multiple district cabinet meetings and conventions say that there's nothing at the meeting for them, at least the time they went. A lot of them are saying they're long and boring meetings, but the lowest reason, less than 10%, said cost was too high, was the reason they weren't attending district meetings. So the biggest reason is that they are long and boring meetings, or there is nothing specifically geared for their role in Lionism. So it's a little bit of food of thought, but let's talk about what we're talking about tonight in this session. Now that we've given a little bit of a statistical information about why people are not attending district meetings, let's look at our objectives for the session. Number one, we're going to define the importance of development meetings in the role of a district. We're going to define the types of development meetings a district should have and detail the 6 steps to effective development meetings. So let's get started. The first thing that I'd like to ask you as a group to agree with me for a second is that every district in our association should have a mission statement very similar to what's on your screen, in that every district should have its mission focused on striving to build and support Lions clubs in their efforts to become vital parts of their communities and serving to their communities. I hope you will agree, and if you agree that that's really our primary mission for a district, is all about building and supporting vital Lions clubs, if you want to summarize it. If you agree and would vote in favor of that being a good mission statement for your particular district, raise your hand over in the hand bar and let's see how our vote goes. Seeing a lot of hands up. Well, it's an overwhelming majority agree, and this is in fact the sole, not the sole, but the greatest purpose for a district is in fact to strive to build and support Lions clubs. So doesn't it make sense that when a district meets, it ought to be focused on clubs and building and supporting healthy and vital and relevant clubs to the district? So let's go through the steps in trying to define a developmental meeting. And directly related to the main mission for why we have a district, the first task to determine when addressing a developmental meeting for your district is to really define the purpose or objective that you want to achieve. What's in it for the club? So let's, for example, if we're going to take a hypothetical meeting, if you're a zone chairman and you're planning a zone meeting or a district governor's advisory committee meeting, the first question that ought to be in your mind as a zone chairman is what's in it for the clubs that are coming to this meeting. If you're a district governor or a vice district governor already getting ready to plan your district cabinet meetings for next year, then the question as you look at those different meetings ought to be in it, what's in it for the club? And so the first question is to try to find out what the benefit I hope to achieve as a district leader that will benefit the club leaders that come to my particular meeting. Part of that is making sure that you know what is needed in your district. Give you an example of a phone call I received this week from a vice district governor in my state who was working diligently to save a club that had fallen behind in payment of its dues. One of the things that he and I talked about was how to deal with paying dues and payment plans that LCI staff will agree to if a club asks for it. So part of what he is addressing there was an issue that might be something relevant to talk to struggling clubs at a cabinet meeting or district training event or something to talk about how to stay out of status quo. Why is this an important topic? Well, next year, the International Board has decided that clubs automatically go on status quo after 90 days being arrears and dues, whereas it had been 120 days. So it's becoming a much shorter period for districts to address this need. That's the type of need that you and I as a district leader may realize needs to be talked about and needs to be addressed with club leadership at a district meeting. And I'm just pulling that as an example. You need to know the needs of your clubs and then shape a meeting around that. So maybe there are problems with clubs not getting their dues in and not reporting membership appropriately. So there needs to be something at the meeting in an educational fashion to train club secretaries on billing and ideas of how to get clubs to pay members to pay dues and things of that nature that might be training sessions, all to head off the risk of more clubs ending up on status quo. And so know the needs and then you want to build a meeting around those needs. Of course, as is often the case, at every cabinet meeting of the district or a zone meeting, there are business requirements that must be taken care of. For example, y'all earlier made an example that district meetings, you're going to have a budget that needs to be approved. And appropriately at cabinet meetings, you're going to have secretary reports and treasurer reports and different reports that are still required. So while you're also shaping the general meeting so that it'll have a function for the clubs, you can't displace all of the business requirements that may be required for that particular district meeting. Likewise, there must be a balance of tradition. This is kind of strange for us to talk about this, but a balance of tradition, many districts and even zones have traditions of what takes place at their meetings. And if you don't follow those traditions, some members that have been very faithful in coming to those meetings may in fact be upset and not appreciate enough to come to the next one. So you must, although I'm the first one in favor of making changes, I don't believe in making changes just to make change. You make changes in order to make the meeting effective for those clubs. But you don't want to completely ignore traditions that have developed along in that district or in that particular zone. So the first step is to stop and look at what needs to be done to help your clubs. Second, What type of business requirements have got to take place at this particular meeting? What kind of reports are all but mandatory? And what types of traditions? And how can I, as a club leader, go to the next step? And that is, go to the next step, and that is figuring out how to build a quality meeting. Now, every meeting that a district has should be a developmental meeting. There are business things that you're going to have to take care of at that meeting, but all of them should have a developmental purpose. Things like officer training. Clearly, you can have officer training at any number of events. I'm going to lower everybody's hand for a second. How many of you have cabinet meetings where you ask the club leaders to come because you offer training events either before or after the formal cabinet meeting? If you do that, raise your hand. I see Mitt, Terrence, Vicky says she does, Kathy says she does, Chris and David, Becky, Betty Ann does. So I'm seeing a good number of hands raised. And especially if your district is the type that encourages club leaders to come to district cabinet meetings, it would be wise to have training events in conjunction with that meeting. Now, this may be heresy to some people, but when I was district governor, I never had a, quote, cabinet meeting. Why? Well, when I was a vice governor, I never will forget calling a club president in a neighboring community and asking him if he was going to the cabinet meeting. And his response to me was, I'm not on the cabinet. I'm a club president. I don't need to go to a cabinet meeting. Well, so when I was district governor, we had cabinet meetings. I had 4 cabinet meetings by year, but they were held as part of another meeting, which I called something different, like a kickoff rally in the fall with a football theme and exciting events and training and kind of a pep rally for getting the Lions year started in early August. Had a cabinet meeting then too, but it was part of the kickoff rally. Had a fall festival with entertainment and training and all. Still had a cabinet meeting, but I didn't call it a cabinet meeting because I wanted people, number one, to think it was different than the old boring cabinet meeting where you had 60 people get up and tell a report. And so a little creativity was appropriate. Likewise, your district conventions. Hopefully most of you have been to district convention or two. There are certain things that are required to happen at a district convention, but likewise, those are opportunities to make it a developmental meeting for your membership. And I'm not just talking about training, as we'll talk about in a few moments, about some creativity. As I just was talking about, you can call them a rally instead of a formal meeting. And so once you've figured out what your objective is, the next step is to develop an agenda for your meeting, whether it's a zone meeting, whether it's a cabinet meeting, whether it's a district convention. The next number 2 big step of the 6 is to develop an agenda. Now, earlier we had a slide that reflected the Bachelor program. And this, of course, is a master's program course. I encourage you, if you have not taken the effective club meeting session, to take it because it focuses on what we call the 3 F's of a Lions meeting. And so I'm going to test some of you because I've seen some of you in the past. But if you know the answer to what one of the F's are, I want you to type it in the questions pane so that I can see who remembers those. And I see Dawn's already typed all 3 of them. Well, 2 of them, Dawn. Good. Dawn was the first to type fun. One F that should be at every Lions meeting. whether it's an international convention or whether it's a club committee meeting, is fun. A lot of funds. Joyce says fellowship. That's the second F of every Lions meeting, is a sense of fellowship. We need one of the great assets of Lions clubs is the fact that we have a friendship and fellowship among our members, and relationships are built at district meetings just like they are at club meetings. And so every Lions of gathering should have a time for fellowship. Absolutely. And I'm looking for, and AJ's been to some of my classes because he comes up with the third F, and that's fulfillment. Lions should leave every single Lions meeting having a sense that they, as being a part of the Lions, are making a difference in the world, and they feel fulfilled. Part of fulfillment is also recognizing those people that have done outstanding jobs and giving them a special pat on the back that holds them out as an example to others to follow likewise. Now, here's a bad thing I'm going to say, so don't shoot me. But one of the things that really bothers me at some cabinet meetings at the end of the year in Georgia, the district governor will go through and he'll recognize every member of his cabinet with some appreciation, even though that governor may know that certain committee chairmen never did anything. Fulfillment and recognition is only good if it's recognizing those people that have themselves fulfilled their obligation. And so fulfillment is not patting everybody on the back, it's patting those on the back that have done or excelled at their job. So the three F's, part of your agenda when you set up a zone meeting, you set up a cabinet meeting, you set up a district convention, part of those F's include or make part of that meeting should make sure there's a fun opportunity, not just a tail twister, but something else. There's an opportunity for fellowship, and there's an opportunity for Lions to leave feeling like they are making a difference, whether that's an inspirational speaker, whether that's someone making a comment concerning the benefit they've received as someone that's received services from Lions, any number of ways to make that sense happen. As you develop the agenda for your meeting, include the required or expected items. And I put required in quotes because that's really not absolute, but there are things that are required. For example, if you're holding a district convention, you need to do the required formalities of holding a district election for the vice governors and the governor, as well as any other district officers that may be elected per your respective district or multiple district constitution. There are also things that have developed by expectation. My multiple district and in my district in Georgia, we have a Hall of Fame process, which recognizes and is part of the fulfillment, recognizing people that have made lifelong contributions to our association. And that's an expected tradition that I would want to make sure if I'm a district governor is part of the agenda for my district convention each year. And so part of you as a district or zone leader need to make sure you know what's normally expected. And before you take the job, go to the ones before you and take notes. And finally, be creative. This is where you add special things. I thought about throwing some slide pictures in here. There's some very creative districts. The district in and around the Tampa, Florida area. Every time I see pictures posted on Facebook of one of their meetings, they almost always have a theme and a theme party as part of every district cabinet meeting, every district convention they have, where they're having fun and exciting events going on that makes the meeting exciting. All of this should be part of your agenda development and applying a creative sense. So I want to stop here and I want you to either raise your hand or type in a way that you have been to a district meeting and seen something creative that's unique and fun, exciting, or inspirational, meets one of the three F's. An example, though, that is creative of a district meeting that you have been to. And so if you've got a suggestion or idea, this is a great time to either type it in the question pane or raise your hand, and we'll be glad to share. And I see Chris has raised his hand. Whoop. I think he took it down. Chris? Okay. Anybody else? John. John, have you got a creative district event that you've been to?
Yes, at our district convention, they had a woman who gave, as Helen Keller, her speech to the Lions asking us to be the Knights of the Blind, exactly as she gave it to the Lions.
Fantastic. That was definitely inspirational. Lillian, you've got an idea of a creative situation?
It was always fun that we have, I'm sorry, the vacuum machine is running right now, so I can talk later.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right. Some that have pointed out a quiz about lions, Jim says. Donnie says a Mardi Gras theme, plaid clothing. Michael, let's hope it's all on, unlike some other plaid clothing events we've seen. Jim, St. Patrick's theme. Frankie says we have a meet and greet event at their district meetings. Becky says they have a dress as a 50s person. Make silly, this is a good one, make silly bets. Example, to collect donations for eye research, one PID volunteered to wear a green mohawk and sing an Irish ballad for $33 per person for at least 10 lions. Okay. That comes from Dawn. Elvis impersonator. I hate to say this. I've been to more district meetings than I ever want to admit that have had Elvis impersonators. So be very careful with that because that could be overdone. Trivia shows, Wendy says, presentation by youth on their great experiences with Leos. Good one there, Joyce. Chris says a tailgate party. AJ Lyons Jeopardy, a Halloween party for Lillian, cultural themes. And so y'all have had some creative meetings. It's clear that y'all have had some great experiences inside of Lions at these meetings. And so all of those are great ideas. Luau. This year in Georgia, it may have gotten carried away with everybody heading to Honolulu. So a lot of our district conventions this spring, when we have district conventions in Georgia, are going to have a luau theme. Is an example of creativity. When I was a zone chairman, I had a casino night for one of my zone meetings as a totally different aspect. It wasn't one where we were trying to make a bunch of money or anything of that nature. It was a fun event. And so the point I'm making is you should set your agenda and use it creatively with themed events or funny gags or a special guest that will make your meeting creative. And that is a way that will make your meeting more than the average boring series of reports from district chairmen. Now, the third big step of our 6, the third big step is promotion. Promotion. District events must be promoted, and they need to be promoted in a very reasonable fashion. They need to be promoted in advance. And we're going to talk about the rule of 3 in just a minute concerning major district meetings. You need to share the agenda and location information. You need to make a personal touch. For example, if I'm a zone chairman, I've got 5, 6, 7 clubs. I need to, it's one thing to send out an email saying, hey, we're going to have a zone meeting or a district advisory committee meeting in 3 weeks at this club at this time, da da da. But 5 or 6 phone calls doesn't take that amount of time to call each of the club presidents, call each of the club secretaries, remind them and encourage them to be there. And the same way, encouraging them as zone chairs to go to other district meetings. So one thing that in our technology age that's focused so much on email is we've left out the personal touch. If you have a club that's not participating, call them and ask them to come. If you're a zone chairman and live close enough, say, hey, can I swing by your house and pick you up? Now, I know in some of our western districts where they're as big as the state of Montana, that's not always practical, but a personal touch can be done. Where I'm talking about online and hard copy is in reference to district meetings, not necessarily zone meetings. But a lot of us have district meetings like conventions. And in this day and age, there is no sense in us not having a way that people can register for district meetings online, pay by credit card, not have to mail a check in, not have to fill out a long form that asks information, instead making it hard online. At the same time, we shouldn't leave out those that aren't quite as technologically savvy as all of you are that are participating in a webinar. And so we don't need to leave out the fact that hard copies need to be available to those people that are not as technologically advanced. So I wanted to spend just a second talking about 2 points from this. One is a rule of 3 for a district convention. Now, most of us have been to a district convention. We know that they can be fun and exciting. We also have probably, some of you have been to some district conventions that weren't so fun and exciting. But one of the critical things of promotion is the rule of 3. And you'll see as I get this down, it's a 3-month window for each thing. District conventions, as an incoming district governor, a vice district governor, should definitely know at the beginning of the Lions year, if not even earlier, where their district convention is going to be. Now, you follow the Constitution of standard Constitution for district, you know at the prior convention, at the minimum, the prior convention, it's going to be voted on and selected. Date and location should definitely be something that is made available and promoted in and among your folks a year out. You should realistically have worked with whoever's hosting, we're going to talk about that in a minute, to secure what it's going to cost for the meals and options for housing, if it's going to be at a hotel or a convention center, and start promoting those costs 9 months in advance. You as a district leader should have a general schedule for the weekend and special notes about who your special guest may be, or special events that are going to occur that will encourage people to come as much as 6 months out. And absolutely a detailed agenda with locations and maps and how to get there and online registration and all those things should definitely be available 3 months out. And so why would we want to promote a district convention for a whole year before it actually happens? Is that unreasonable? No. The key to this is trying to get people to know what the meeting's about. And if you've done a good job of putting an agenda together, they're going to want to attend. But oftentimes we have to hit people 3 times, 4 times over the head with the material, and I'm talking figuratively, not literally, to get them to buy into attending. So the rule of 3, keep that in mind, because if you're a zone chairman conducting a zone meeting, maybe it's a rule of 1, and you start the year out letting them know the dates and locations for your zone meetings from the beginning of the year. Then 3 months in advance, you're going to get what it's going to cost for them to come to the meal, a schedule a few weeks in advance, details. The point being is that you let people know as much about your event in advance. People don't like to go to events and be surprises. Holiday Inn a few years ago had a campaign about Holiday Inn was all about no surprises. And largely, people that are coming to an event want to know what's going to happen at that event. And they definitely need the core information. I'm a firm believer of online registration and this day and age. So on this screen are listed several event registration software, online software that's available. Most of these, particularly Eventbrite and Eventzilla, charge $1 to set up per participant when they register, so that they can register online for your event. They help you put together online information and flyers. Then they can register online and pay by credit card. Some of them charge a percentage on the credit card over and above the normal PayPal fees, etc. And your district should have a PayPal account so that your district can, in fact, members can pay. The day and age of cash checks is gone. I'm a firm believer that your district event, to be effective, can see a 20 to 30% increase in attendance just by making online registration and pay by credit card available. So take a look at some of these. I put at the bottom Wild Apricot. As Bud mentioned, I'm the general chairman for the USA-Canada Forum. Wild Apricot is the program the forum uses to handle its registration. It charges a fee, and depending on how many people register for your event, it can be very cheap. If you're under 500, it's like $15 a month. And so it may be something you want to look into to try to increase your attendance, especially if you're looking to get younger, more involved people that have a lot of obligations. They're going to expect this type of registration and promotion of your event because that's what occurs everywhere else. So let's go to point number 4, meeting logistics. As you go through a meeting, the next thing, you've got your agenda set. Now you're going to need to go through the hard logistics of what happens in a particular meeting. If you're going to have a host club take care of that meeting, you need to meet with them and go over these particular items. Excuse me, let me go through. You're going to define their role. What are they going to take care of? What is the district leadership's going to take care of? Who's doing the budget? Who's collecting the money? And what's the budget for that event? Establish a timeline of things that are happening, especially if you're doing something as large as a district convention where you're going to have a publicity chairman, you're going to have a registration chairman, you're going to have a chair for this, chair for that. You want to establish those roles and timelines for those particular chairs, a detailed schedule for the event. You want to review physically the facilities. If I'm conducting a district cabinet meeting, I may want to meet at the spot and look over that facility. Do I need breakout rooms for me to hold training in conjunction with it? So I want to review those facilities largely because I need to then know, well, am I going to need a PA system, or is there a PA system already there? All of these are the logistics that should be part of your preparation in advance. If there are special guests that are coming, for example, at district conventions, oftentimes there is a visiting international director or other international officer, and there may be special obligations concerning that host. The key to do any of these meetings is working with the host chair, working with the host club, working with your other district officers to define what's going to happen in the meeting. and these particular items is critical in advance. So that's the fourth step of your chain for developmental meetings. The next to last is a meeting management. You've done all your planning, you've done all your promotion, you've worked all your logistics, and finally you're getting to actually run your meeting. And so you're going to start it on time and you're going to end it on time. That is critical to every meeting. We ask Lions clubs to do it. The same ought to apply to a district. You want to control presentations. You don't want run-on reports during a cabinet portion that goes on forever and ever. You want to define rules, but make sure those people know the rules in advance. I was at a district cabinet this past fall that the governor decided at the cabinet meeting that every report was going to be limited to 2 minutes, and he had the tail twister up with a big gong, and at 2 minutes it was rung. Well, if the expectation was not made, the committee chairman weren't made aware of that, which he hadn't in advance, then they were planning a 4 or 5 minute report, and suddenly they have 2 minutes. It led to a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration, and some very upset committee chairs. So it's important to control, but it's important also to have those people aware of what controls and restraints are on their portion of the program. I'm a firm believer that there should be a printed agenda at your district meeting or a zone meeting or cabinet meeting or district convention, a printed agenda so that people see that. Now, I'm a believer in technology, and yes, you'll see at the forum this year, you're going to actually have the way to have your agenda on your iPad or your iPhone electronically presented, including the way to navigate to your particular classroom. That's great, but it doesn't replace the fact that a good old printed agenda is also going to be included. In effect, you need to remember all the skills to have an effective club meeting should be applied to a district meeting. There's a great session on the Lions Learning Center about meeting management. I would encourage you to take that particular session from the Lions Learning Center, which is accessible from lionsclubs.org. Under the Membership Center, you'll click Leadership Development and the Lions Learning Center. If you haven't taken one of those, it's a great class, and I encourage you to take it to remember and refresh about how to effectively manage and control a meeting during its course of production of it happening. And the next question is, are you making sure your meeting is manageable and open to all? Are we using too many acronyms so that nobody knows what LCI and GLT stand for and all of the other acronyms? Are we really making it open for everybody? Are we setting certain people up above others? Are we making it really accessible? So I've got another poll for you right quick. And this is a question that really has come up a lot recently. And so I want you to answer a poll about your district's most important event. Usually a district convention, maybe a midwinter meeting. It's your biggest meeting for your district. And so I'm asking a simple question, is what is the expected attire at that particular meeting? And let's see the differences that we have among the 33 people online now. The differences of attire. Okay, just a few more seconds. I think everybody's had a chance to answer, and almost all of you have. I'm going to close that poll, and I'm going to share the results with you. As you can see, about 20% of you have an expectation that it's a formal event. 37% of you there's an expectation that you're at somewhere at that event is going to be at least business coat and tie. A few of you have had expectation that fun attire is ready. And then 37% say, nope, the Lions come as they are, what I call Lions attire, which may be your vest and a shirt or for your club or whatever may be appropriate. And so you can see there is a wide gamut of what the normal attire is at the district big events just among the folks here on the session tonight. So what is this about? Well, if you're going to have a formal event, are you excluding certain people that maybe financially don't want to go buy or rent formal attire? Or if it's only a formal attire for the people at the head table, are you setting them apart? If it's not the flip of each of these has pluses and minuses. Wearing coat and tie, well, are they going to have to change during the meeting from what they previously were wearing? Or should it be what Lions wear all the time? But then it's not a special feeling that this meeting is different. If it's fun attire, are people going to feel odd if they don't want to dress up in a St. Patrick's outfit for St. Patty's Day at a district event? Are they going to feel odd or not come because they don't want to go to the costume shop to get that funny attire? My point is, each of these requirements has pluses and minuses, including a lot of districts where the formal attire is a long-standing tradition, and eliminating that formal attire would disenfranchise and upset some people that traditionally come. At the flip is those people under 30 probably are under 40 probably aren't coming because that's not their style and they haven't established a tradition. So something you have to think about as you manage your meetings, you set your agenda, is how to make it as inclusive for everybody that is a Lion. The last step is evaluation. And that is evaluating what happened at your meeting. And there are some quick points on this. First of all, you should always have it done. You must have either a written evaluation there at the meeting you hand out at the end. Online evaluations are a simple way, and things like SurveyMonkey and so forth are all available. But you should do some evaluation of the meeting, even if it's sitting down your district leaders afterwards and discussing what was good and what was bad. Because the next aspect of that is sharing that evaluation and making sure every future leader that's coming up has an opportunity to learn what was good and what was bad and how to improve. Online services are out there, and I would encourage you to use those. SurveyMonkey and several others are free for limited use. And so that's an easy way to email all your participants and encourage them to evaluate the meeting. So our time is, in fact, we're running a little long, and I apologize, but our objectives tonight have been to define the importance of development meetings and the role of a district, define the types of development meetings a district should hold, and detail the 6 steps to effective developmental meetings. I appreciate your attention tonight. There is a quiz that you can take to complete and get credit towards your master's degree. That quiz is available at this website. There is also an email that will be coming to you actually an hour after we finish that will have a link, direct link to the quiz in that particular email. It may also pop up, I believe, immediately after we're through as a link. But if you miss it, that's where to find it. You can always go to lionsuniversity.org, go to the master's page, go to course 230, this meeting, and you'll see the link that Wendy Kane has posted to the quiz for this. Of course, once you've passed the quiz, we'll want to register or make sure you're registered at least as a Lions University student if you have not registered or been to one of the previous forums. That way we can track your credit towards your decree. There are upcoming webinars, and Bud, I'll unmute you to share about the upcoming webinars that are available both on the both on the bachelor level and the master's level coming up. And all of those can be found on the calendar page at lionsuniversity.org. But you'll see the very next webinar is next Tuesday night on Lions history in the bachelor program. And then, as we mentioned earlier, one on district governance is on February 10th, and the others that are coming later. We also have discussion boards that are available concerning this topic and all Lions University topics as part of the Lions Forum site, and encourage you, if you want to open a dialogue concerning that, please check that out. And so with that, again, I'm going to take us back to the page where the quiz is noted, and I appreciate your attention very much to this evening. We've covered a lot of material. You'll have a brief survey that will come up asking you to evaluate this immediately once we finish this evening, and I appreciate your attention. So at this, I will turn it back over to Bud.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your sharing all this knowledge. It's been a wonderful webinar. I know you could probably go on for much more information, much more time to share with everybody. If we had that opportunity, we would. I want to remind you that the quiz is made up of questions pertaining specific to this webinar and to any handout material. Mark, did you have handout material available for this webinar?
I'll be honest, no, I have not. We will be posting some handout material probably tomorrow on the website for your reference after the fact. Unfortunately, it was not finished in time to get to the website tonight. My apologies, being this is the kickoff of the master's program. I apologize, but there will be a handout for your reference that will be posted hopefully tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And you're not necessarily required to take the quiz tonight. You can take the quiz at any time for any of the courses, just simply by going on to the website and clicking on that particular course, and then clicking on to the test as well. The test does require you to have a 70% passing in order to pass the test, and then immediately after the test, you would be able to print off or save on a PDF form a certificate of completion for this particular course. So with that, I want to thank everyone for attending this evening and taking part in the polls that Mark had tonight. And I'm sure we all picked up something from the webinar this evening on effective district meetings. Thank you again, Mark, and we look forward to another bachelor's course next week, a week from tonight, and then 2 weeks from tonight will be the second master's program course being presented. So with that,